Saya adalah mantan atau former chairman of Standards Committee on blockchain, dan ini adalah suatu komiti bawah Department of Standards Malaysia, MITI. Saya daripada swasta, bukan daripada kerajaan, dan saya tak pernah kerja dengan kerajaan dulu. Memang komiti yang teknikal ini memang keahliannya adalah mix antara swasta dengan kerajaan. Tapi I was the chairman until 2021. Okay. So you can download the charts that I have here from this screen here while I'm talking, introduce myself. Pasal saya ada dalam 40 chart, jadi mungkin saya tak boleh cover semua. Some of the charts you can actually look at it later on, ataupun you boleh pass pada orang yang tak ada dalam hall ini pada hari ini, ya. So sebagaimana seringkasnya, saya sebenarnya background sebenarnya saya sebagai engineer. Saya lulusan engineer, saya bekerja sebagai engineer, dan ini adalah baju Institution Engineers Malaysia, ya. Dan early my career memang saya kerja sebagai engineer, tetapi later on saya tukar menjadi in the area of software. Saya masuk mula-mula lembaga elektrik negara sebelum tenaga nasional. Lepas tu dengan Exxon, di mana saya eventually become the application manager untuk Exxon in Malaysia, yang cover basically all the upstream, downstream, marketing, supply chain, accounting, application di Exxon, ya. Dan saya punya syarahan ini, saya sebagai seorang participant konsultan dalam pembangunan roadmap blockchain. So I'm not the official spokesperson. I'm just speaking from point of view of my experience in working in that particular team to develop roadmap. Jadi don't take it as official, but as a participant with my points of view. Now, my emphasis in terms of this roadmap will be more on basically some of the thinking concepts rather than actually the roadmap proper, which will be covered later on. Okay, let's move on. Ini sebagai summary, sebagai introduction. I've got a few professional memberships as well. Okay, sebelum I go into specific roadmap pasal blockchain, let's talk generally about Malaysia's punya plan. Malaysia banyak plan. RMK lah, roadmap lah, master plan, strategies, vision. Ni antara yang banyak yang kita ada. I think most of you would probably recognize plans yang telah release oleh kerajaan. Ada lagi lepas ni, ya, there are many. I think it is very important for you all to actually have a look at them, because these are all forward 5 years, 10 years kind of plans, and it may impact you when you actually go into the working area. So you must know basically what is actually happening. Okay, and the National Blockchain Roadmap was launched in August of last year by the Minister of Musti, and actually dalam kita punya team that developed the roadmap, we've actually finished the early 2021. Tapi tak tahulah dia dalam Musti itu dalam setahun dipegang benda ni, baru August last year baru di launch. Jadi lambat sikit lah, itu pasal dia punya roadmap disebutkan sini 2021 to 2025. Dan itu you can download the roadmap yang ada dekat Musti punya website. Okay, first question I'll ask you, is blockchain ICT or non-ICT? I think this question tak pernah disoal, tapi I think it's very important to understand whether this is issue, whether this is properly understood or not. Is blockchain ICT or non-ICT? Ada any of us want to answer that question? Okay, in the interest of time. Okay, just to give the example or basically answer, dalam the ISO, International Organization for Standardization, yeah, there is an IT punya standards committee where I was the deputy chairman local punya chapter ni, dan dipanggilnya ISO IC JT1. Dan dalam komiti ni adalah all basically IT related kind of areas that are standards development under JTC1, basically under ICT. Tetapi blockchain is not under that. Blockchain has got its own separate standards committee called ISO TC 307. Because blockchain is more than ICT. It's talking about transformation of the society, of the way people work, the processes and all that. Kena faham benda tu. Yeah? So because of that, there's a lot of papers that come up from the various organizations that basically explain what can be done with blockchain. ICT is basically the enabler. You can actually have the technology to be implemented, but the more fundamental thing is the way things are being changed in terms of the way we work. Okay, this is something that is probably not often discussed, but it's very important to understand. I was interviewed by a couple of students who are doing PhD, and they are not from the ICT department. Seorang daripada economics department, seorang daripada I think sociology department. Because as I said, blockchain is more than ICT. Okay, to give another example, this is basically extracted from the World Economic Forum paper pasal blockchain beyond the hype. So this is basically a flowchart to decide whether you want to implement blockchain or not in a particular area. Tapi the first question tanya di sini, okay, right up there. The first question is basically, are you trying to remove intermediaries or brokers? Dia tak tanya, are you trying to automate the process? Are you trying to digitize the process? Are you trying to do something like that? But it's a big question here. Are you trying to remove intermediaries or brokers? So that is a non-ICT question. It's basically a process question. And of course, when you say that, oh, you're not actually going to remove the broker or intermediary, don't implement blockchain. Senang. But if you want to have that kind of intention, then some more you can go down the flowchart. But I'm not going to go into that detail, but to indicate the key question is being asked dalam this flowchart. Yeah? Okay, to give an example, dalam Walmart, this is basically a case that happened a few years ago. The vice president of Walmart punya supermarket chain, he comes to a random one of the Walmart punya outlet. Dia ambil a pack of sliced mangoes. Dia tanya staff dia, can you tell me where this thing came from? So the staff kena cari lah dia system and all that, and they found that it came from a particular farm, a particular location and all that. But it took 6 days, 18 hours, and 26 minutes to find out the information. It's not immediately. Now, they experimented that by using blockchain in that particular same process. The information came in 2.2 seconds. So you can see the difference here and where the power of blockchain is. Now, in this respect, it comes back to this question here. When you're actually looking at this process here, removing intermediaries, that's where, in this case, you would have, for example, from the farm, you've got the logistics, you've got the warehouse, you've got the packaging and what. There's a lot of people in there. Each one of these are the so-called administrative or clerical kind of area where they're looking at the invoices, looking at papers coming in to and fro and all that. Now, all this, when you actually have a blockchain, many of these functions, that's where you can say intermediaries are being removed. It's basically a story that's maybe difficult to tell because nanti orang kata ini blockchain ni akan kita nak hilang kerja. But that's not an issue. We're talking about efficiency and accuracy of information, okay? And this is another case. I want to go into that. Okay, blockchain will be ubiquitous. So I took the opportunity to basically get a translation of what this term means because it's not very obvious to many people. Tapi dalam bahasa Melayu, when I get from the internet, meluas dan atau serata. Maknanya, like the World Wide Web, we are talking about World Wide Web since the early 1990s. Sekarang ni macam kita tak sebut lagi. It's only part of us, kita tak sebut. Tetapi, blockchain will be like the World Wide Web. Currently, it's like the World Wide Web in the early 1990s, but you becoming like the World Wide Web, whereby dia macam sebati dengan kehidupan, that you don't even talk about it. And that's where there are macam books basically saying here, blockchain today is what the World Wide Web was in 1992. Blockchain will impact all aspects of society, just as the World Wide Web has impacted and ingrained in today's economy, government and society, but in a shorter time frame. Okay, ini a prediction by people who are actually looking at this technology in time. And it's a foundation of technology, covers a number of things here. So regional papers on blockchain, okay, this is another area whereby international organizations, you got the UN, the World Trade Organization, World Customs Organization, have papers on blockchain for international trade. And you don't often actually find this kind of international organizations having a kind of paper that talks about this kind of area, maybe in a specific area, but not in a broad area like this. And G20 countries also have got views about blockchain. G20 countries are basically the 20 countries that together, they have about 60% of the economy, 60% of the population. And what they have said is they've got a working paper here. It says here, dalam the gray part here, okay, blockchain hold the key to integrating other emerging technologies. And these are the other emerging technologies dalam the paper. So you can have all of that, but blockchain will glue them all together. Have that in mind where they're positioning blockchain is. Okay? So now, this is another thing. The European Parliament has come up with 2 resolutions on blockchain. It's very, very rare for a parliament to come up with a resolution on this kind of thing, which is technology and more than that. But they've got 2 resolutions, okay, in 2018. It is something that actually been talking to the government and tell them, kita cuma nak ubah sikit-sikit dalam dia punya teks ni, because it's about the same for all countries. Cuma tukar the header and the bottom line, but the core of it, what blockchain can do, we can actually use it. Now, take a supply chain example. Okay, this is where, I don't know where I can see this. The first part is non-plus area where we have the physical flow of the goods and services and all that. Then you have the information flow, your data system, and you have basically the next layer, which is blockchain layer. You can see that the bars basically indicate the more you go towards from left to right, the bar becomes more than the side. So what it means to say, at that level, you can find all the information from the top, from left to the right, up to that point very fast. Okay, then there's another part here, which is basically a smart contracts, which I'm not going to go into subject currently. Now, these are basically from the United Nations, how they see basically in the supply chain, which is basically what's explained here. And in 2020, the World Trade Organization came out with a mapping of the basic functions in supply chain in world trade. And these are currently, at that point in time, the various companies worldwide that we identified providing the services in those areas. Unfortunately, Malaysia is not there. There's no Malaysian company there. There are 3 Singapore companies and other from other countries, but Malaysia is not there. This 2020, now probably they are. Okay, I do not have that record. Blockchain basics, blockchain history is there. Basically, these are the main points when we talk about blockchain: transparency, keterusan, traceability, transaksi boleh dijaki, auditability boleh diaudit, dan tidak boleh diubah, immutability. So there's as much I'm going to say about blockchain, what it is. I'm not going to go to the technical aspects of it. Infrastructure initiatives, okay, this is another area that you have to think about. Unlike other technologies, China has come up with an infrastructure on blockchain. We're talking about infrastructure on blockchain. They already have it. And so is Europe. So these are the things that are not quite commonly being done by with other technologies. But because this one crosses organization, crosses boundaries and all that, they actually have to have an infrastructure to actually facilitate the implementation of blockchain applications. Okay, blockchain implementation issues. There was a study being done by the World Economic Forum. Excuse me. And what they found when they did study in UAE, when they implemented blockchain, the top 5 reasons for challenges in blockchain deployment are non-technology issues. And they basically have there, bringing the stakeholders together, people issues, regulatory implications, education awareness, identifying and understanding the most relevant application blockchain, and addressing governance. So this is where I'm saying that it is not really a technology issue per se, but basically talking about transformation of processes and all that, which is very, very challenging, especially when we're talking about across organization and across borders. And when we did the blockchain roadmap, we basically discussed dalam trade facilitation, what are the ministries and agencies involved in Malaysia, and basically we come up with this 20 with many functions that they play in trade facilitation for Malaysia, talking about international trade. Can you imagine what it takes to bring them all together, particularly when you actually have the experience from UAE, that is a non-technology issue, which is a challenge there. So this is where we are facing a challenge. And that's why we have been emphasizing dalam roadmap 2, blockchain must be handled differently from the way other IT-related so-called roadmaps and applications are being done. Okay, so these are basically a list of the challenges in blockchain implementation in Malaysia. One thing is ICT is handled by too many ministries. You may not see that or whatever, but it is actually handled by too many ministries and agencies. Unclear mandate, by the way, it's all from the roadmap, you know. It's basically published in roadmap. Unclear mandate or the execution of the mandate may result in poor cooperation between ministries. Yelah, bagi mandate lah, tapi ministries and agencies, okay lah, we can cooperate or whatever, tapi mungkin lepas batuk di tangga, kemungkinan lah. And this is part of the problem. Ministries just continue to work in silos rather than proactively do their part. Cross-ministry rivalry in controlling parts of the project, adequate funding, comprehensive change management program, non-government stakeholder entities not cooperating, possibly with fear that intermediary function. Ini intermediary functions, kalau macam tadi the Walmart punya example, there are some intermediate functions that may be not required anymore. So there may be some challenge and there may be some resistance there. Delay in regulatory changes and alignments, delay in government addressing cross-border issues with other governments, commitment of parties, and corruption persistence. Yes, there are papers to basically say blockchain can actually address ataupun mitigate lah macam corruption issues. Highlights of the roadmap. Now we are coming to the roadmap what basically says in a nutshell. Where they are looking at in the roadmap, basically these are use cases we looked at, asset tracking, and there are a number of that in there. Halal, provenance, transportation, supply chain, vaccine, and all that. Document management and workflow management. Basically, when you look at this, it covers basically everything that happens in any country. So this is where we are looking at in the roadmap. And the focus areas, basically you have asset activity registration, trade facilitation, and the supply regulatory and all that. Mungkin to go into detail is basically all in the roadmap. But these are the things that identified. Basically, it covers the broad area of government services and also the public e-government. And also item C there, bottom line, the national blockchain infrastructure. Now, there's also talk about governance. Earlier on, I showed the chart about the various roadmap strategies and all that. Every one of them typically will have some form of governance structure, and definitely dalam blockchain pun ada juga lah. How would things fall together in terms of the government push, the funding, the training, the resources and all that to work together to ensure success. So dalam roadmap pun ada juga mention about that. And then governance considerations, there are a number of considerations to consider. I don't think I want to go into detail unless you have some questions on that. Okay, this is talking about the processes to actually have thing being done. Now, it's highlighted in the roadmap, by the way. Sama pelaksanaan tu mungkin different lah. To ensure sustainability, the first one, of the blockchain program, it is important for the blockchain program to be executed by a one-stop agency with a dedicated project team that is answerable to Parliament. Pernah tak kita dengar benda ni they propose in other technologies? I don't think so. You have heard that. The reason why that's the case because of the chart I showed earlier. A lot, 20 agencies, at least ministries involved. You work at the ministry level, it won't happen. You got to be driven top down and all that. Tapi pelaksanaan tak ikut sekarang ni in this area, itu the challenge you are facing. Okay. The team must also have the authority to deal with the respective function in other countries, and the team must have legal authority to get the stakeholders, ministries, and all that to actually push. So it's a tall order, but to make it happen, considering what we experience in other countries, this has to happen. The possible scenarios. Okay, this is also another chart that appears in the roadmap. We have studied basically the ecosystem. Okay, these are the collaboration, amplifier, talent, and all that. So we take the ecosystem parameters and we highlight basically the various possibilities that can happen. We are not going to go into that detail. You basically in the green one on top, kalau everything is put properly in place, then we have a growth scenario. We'll be good and successful in blockchain. Kalau we have a sort of a 50-50 kind of scenario, maybe we can just maintain status quo. Yeah, maybe we maintain the status quo and not be as competitive as other countries that are doing it. But if we kerja sambil lewa, tak committed, and we really do not commit to basically what the roadmap says, then we may decline. Other countries are moving ahead and will be declining. These are also highlighted in the roadmap. So finally, basically, we have to bear in mind, it requires difference in thinking. The significant problems we face today cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Do we have a problem? Depends on how you actually look at it. But I'm saying to you, a lot of countries have moved forward with regards to the papers from the UN, the World Trade Organization, and the World Customs Organization. We don't follow suit. Maybe in one time down the road, you can see a shipment from Europe to here, information about that particular shipment daripada Europe ke our port, dekat Port Klang, takes 2 seconds. From Port Klang to supermarket, takes 10 days. Whether it's good or not for the consumer, I don't know. But basically, that's the kind of scenario. I think in future, we may be losing out from other countries. So that's basically the last chart in my presentation. And basically, closing remarks, summary of all that is now. World is moving forward towards blockchain implementation in all aspects of economy and society. We shape our destiny or we be shaped by others who are ahead of the game. The top 5 challenges in blockchain is basically non-technology issues. Blockchain is by nature cross-organization and hence extending cross borders. Okay, it's designed to operate in trust data code that is greater than trust individuals or simulation. Ini cerita ni cerita panjang sikit lah kalau nak elaborate, maybe about half an hour. And finally, the last 2 points, digital infrastructure, governing regulation, and digital literacy should be in place. And decision makers should have an understanding of the technology before deciding on whether or not it is appropriate. Thank you, and I'm open to questions. How am I doing timing? Okay.
Terima kasih Cik Abdul Fattah. Saya buka untuk sesi soal jawab. Jika ada sebarang soalan boleh mengangkat tangan.
So saya nak tanya, sejauh mana negara sedia untuk mengadaptasi platform blockchain ni? Sebab macam yang kita nampak, kita tak boleh solely satu agensi je yang guna blockchain. So kita nampak dia ada banyak agensi yang perlukan blockchain. Adakah kalau macam tu kita boleh solely bergerak sendiri daripada bottom up?
Okay. Bagus soalan tu. Before I answer that question, I want to relate one practical example. Yeah, the Securities Commission, Suruhanjaya Security, they actually implemented a pilot on blockchain in 2017. Okay, and talking about blockchain, I mentioned earlier, it involves multi-organization or multi countries and all that. Itu yang basically the benefit of basically using blockchain and where it sort of fits properly lah. So when they did the pilot, there are I think about 4 or 5 organizations involved. You know, the banks, the exchange and whatever, a few. Tapi bila nak implement fully, one of the parties amongst these 5 or 6 parties dalam the pilot tu refused to go. Dia kata, I tak setuju nak go on. Okay, so that is a practical example. Now, there was a paper that was available dalam Securities Commission website, right? Tapi now it's been removed because we have been asking the question, why did the pilot did not go through to a full implementation? The pilot basically the report, ada report, I think berapa muka lah, it says successful apa semua, but why didn't go full blown? So the answer given informally by the implementer, the technical team that implement is a company that I seem to know the person involved. Dia kata, well, actually one of the parties disagreed to actually move forward. And this is not a government party, it's basically a private sector party, which is part of a chain. So what does it tell you? You do not have a top-down push with regards to do. You're not going to get something successful with regards to all the chain. You're talking about supply chain daripada factory di sini ke logistics, warehousing, ke customs, ke port and all that. Kalau ada party yang basically disagree or whatever, slow down, then you're going to have a problem. Maybe kata, if that's the case, don't implement it all. And then we are behind other countries. I showed the charts now about the various companies that are involved in the various stages of the supply chain trade facilitation. Right, and I say Malaysia is not there as of 2020 punya report ni. I don't know about now because they tak produce a latest report. But this has to happen. It has to be top down. This is the kind of thing that I'm trying to emphasize to the government. It's not to be handled the same way like other technologies. I'm not belittling and saying the other technologies are kecil ataupun very easy to implement or whatever. But I'm talking about thinking process, how you actually want to get it done. Right? If you look at other countries, macam I kata the European Parliament. European Parliament, 750 members of Parliament from 28 countries. And yet they approve a resolution, blockchain for trade and for basically a general use. 2 paper, bukan 1. In 2018, not recently, 2018. This is 2023, 5 years. So you can imagine how far we are behind in that aspect. So this challenge I'm facing basically from the private sector side. Did I answer your question? Okay.
So, my name is Istihar. I'm basically, before this, I'm IT student, and right now I'm a public policy student.
Okay.
So I think the government need to have a focus point. Before this, boleh cakap bahasa Melayu, senang sikit. Kita cakap bahasa Melayu lah.
Boleh.
Okay. Kalau saya lihat banyak polisi yang dah dibuat lah dalam kerajaan.
Yeah.
MySkill and so on. Tapi saya nampak kemungkinan dia ada fokus. Adakah kerajaan nak fokus pada infrastruktur, iaitu 5G. Sekarang ni kita tengah cuba untuk implementasikan 5G di negara kita.
Apa dia?
5G.
5G. Okay.
Yes. So adakah kita nak fokus on infrastructure first, on urban and rural part of 5G, and then we implement blockchain, or we can implement blockchain, but on the software, on the system itself, but then kita pula kena fokus pada infrastructure. So macam mana
Okay.
fokus kita?
Okay, that's a good question. Saya menjawab senang tu basically you have to ask the government lah. Tapi while all these other things are going on with regards to infrastructure and all that, I showed a chart just now. There are difficulties ataupun the challenges implementing blockchain. The top 5, non-technology, people issues, regulatory issues, getting people to work together and all that. That takes time, especially in Malaysia. Because as I mentioned in the last few charts now, I think I'm not sort of wrong to basically say that agency kerajaan, ministries and all that involved, sometimes or rather most of the time they work in silos. To talk to each other mungkin susah sikit. They may not admit it, but I think in my own practical experience looking at it, having a few meetings and all that, this is basically what happened. Including some government servants admitting that. Susah nak kerja pasal ada silo lah. Ni government servants in charge. Correct me if I'm wrong lah, tapi ini pengalaman. So, what I'm trying to say, compared to maybe the other countries, Thailand, Philippines and all that, they are moving. Vietnam is moving. Vietnam is quite a fair far ahead. Locally, maybe we have some issues with regards to the way we are managing things. I don't know where the problem is, but I think there are some peculiarities with the way things are being done in Malaysia yang kita kena take note of, and it may take a longer time to, if 5G semua dah sedia, kita masih belum sedia lagi. Because the change of the mindset and the preparation to move into blockchain environment takes a lot of time. Sorry, can anyone to update me on basically what I said just now? Yeah. Salah. Dari mana? Okay, Uniza.
Okay. I'm the one yang bangunkan blockchain dekat Uniza.
Okay.
So macam currently we use the Ethereum framework. So adakah kerajaan Malaysia nak standardize penggunaan framework ataupun something teknologi yang berkaitan dengan blockchain ni untuk masa akan datang?
Okay, a general question, a general answer basically yang kita tadi, European, they have got their own blockchain infrastructure, China pun ada, tetapi they are open to various other kind of thing to hop on. Jadi it's open actually. Ya, kemungkinan lah in order to minimize complication dia apa, they may come with certain guidelines apa yang boleh dibuat dengan itu ataupun apa yang tak boleh dibuat. But if you're going for Ethereum, I think it's quite safe lah.
Sebab kita orang bangun before COVID lah, tahun 2019 kita orang bangunkan masa tu tak ada standardized semua tu, jadi kita just buat research and bangunkan benda tu lah.
It's good kalau siapa-siapa yang tengah bangunkan application ataupun looking into the area, communicate back to mostly tanya pasal what they can do, what they need to know, then they can explain lah. Itu satu lagi perkara nak I pun nak mention dalam roadmap ni, dalam kita develop roadmap, we don't talk about cryptocurrency, we don't talk about NFT, we don't talk about DAO or whatever, because itu dah basically sitting on the base. We're talking about the basic blockchain and the mindset that needs to be there, for cross-organization, cross-border kind of application. So you're looking for cryptocurrency dalam ini tak adalah dalam roadmap ni.
Betul. Masa kita bangun pun kita pening pasal benda tu. Kita jumpa benda tu yang dia punya perbezaan tu.
Okay. Ada lagi?
Assalamualaikum. Saya nak tanya, tadi apa Cik Fattah cakap pasal intermediary kan?
Ya.
Saya rasa mungkin sebabkan intermediaries tu antara faktor yang menghalang implementasi blockchain dekat Malaysia. Dia takut, contoh macam yang saya nampak, walaupun tak cakap pasal, kita kena terima lah crypto coin, dia memang memberi kesan kepada finance. Sebab contoh banking, katalah sekarang kita bayar, sekarang kita melalui bank kan. So sekarang bila ada blockchain, maknanya saya terus bayar dekat Cik Fattah, saya tak perlu pergi bank lah kan. So bank, mungkin bank ni dia nampak keraguan ataupun dia nampak kalau tu macam mana kita ni kat mana kalau blockchain on kan. Apa pandangan apa? Itu yang satu. Yang kedua, isu kedua adalah isu dari segi scalability, performance blockchain. Contoh, katakanlah untuk yang biasa ni okey lah, tapi bila dia semakin banyak penggunaan dia, usage dia, bukankah dia akan menyebabkan performance? So, maksudnya contoh kalau kita pakai yang sekarang Visa saya rasa cepat. Cepat. Tapi kalau pakai blockchain, dia punya tempoh masa tu dia ambil masa kan. So macam mana untuk kita nak hidupkan blockchain tu?
Okey. Dah.
Terima kasih.
Okay, the answer to soalan pertama tu is not merely the banking area, but even basically in other areas, in production, in health, in government, and all that. This issue intermediary will be an area, especially in Malaysia, yang akan timbul some questions, concerns lah. Am I going to lose my job? Okay. Now, let's look again lah. Let me give an example in Singapore. Bila they implement smart city, for example, apa yang nampak tu, the smart city, the IoT devices and all that will be coming with a lot of data coming out, but they need to actually have analysts to analyze the data to come up with something useful for the government. So what they did, apart from identifying with smart city implementation, some people will be losing their jobs. Ni contoh ya. They need data scientists and data analysts. They retrain these people. It's a government initiated effort to train these people to become data scientists and data analysts. And they become that. Now data scientists, data analysts is about highest paid in Singapore. Kalau you tengok job punya search and all that, is that. Okay. So what the chart I should yang 20 agencies and ministries, satu HR. Yeah, HR ministry, because you have got to transform the people and all to change and to come into new things rather than, okay lah, we are doing this, you tak ada kerja, you go on your own. Tak boleh. Government must come in to say, what do we do with the people who are going to be displaced? That's why it's all working together. Jadi jangan pula ada masa perbincangan, development and all that. Ada pula kata, oh kalau gitu, I punya jabatan sekarang ni ada 50 orang, dah turun dalam 20 orang, I pun kurang, and what do we do with these people? So that kind of discussion shouldn't come arise. It must be handled at central level. What do we do with people who may be displaced because of blockchain? So yang kedua tu pasal scalability. This is an ongoing issue. So for your vision, bila blockchain committee was started, the standards committee in 2017, yeah, there were some countries who basically say the way actually we do it is one country, in this case is Standards Australia, they come with proposal, we must have blockchain standard to be developed. Okay, so ISO will dish it out to worldwide, all the member countries of ISO, tanya pandangan. So there was some discussion, voting and all that. So some countries were saying it's too early because blockchain is still quite in early stage. Ada yang kata, oh, blockchain should be under IT security. Ada yang kata blockchain should be under this and that. But ultimately, the vote come about, blockchain should be a separate committee. So what I'm trying to say here, they know that there are some issues that are going to be resolved or have to be resolved. Scalability is one of them. Interoperability is another one. But we have to go on to actually come to talk and discuss to come up with the standards in order to develop that. Betul kata you macam Mastercard ke Visa, di how many thousands transactions per second they can handle. Blockchain up to now tak boleh sampai tanding itu. Ada yang claim boleh buat lah, tapi caranya mungkin lain sikit. So there are some issues that are being challenged there. Dah habis dah.
Okey, saya tutup sesi soal jawab kita.